What if I told you that one of the most powerful health resets people are talking about today isn't new, isn't trendy, and doesn't come in a bottle? In fact, it's something people have been practicing quietly for thousands of years, long before modern nutrition labels, calorie trackers, or diet trends ever existed. And now, in a very interesting twist, modern science is starting to look at it and say, wait, this actually makes sense biologically. It's called the Daniel fast, and it's a simple 21-day eating reset that may influence your gut, your brain, your heart, and even the way everyday food tastes to you in a surprisingly noticeable way. And the crazy part is this: you don't need extreme rules or expensive programs. You just need to eat differently for 3 weeks and observe what happens inside your own body. And if you stick with me for the next few minutes, you might start seeing food and your body a little differently. Let's break it down. What exactly is the Daniel fast? The Daniel fast comes from an ancient story where Daniel chose to avoid rich, heavily processed royal foods and instead ate simple, natural, plant-based foods along with water as his main source of hydration. Today, people have adapted this idea into a modern 21-day reset that's used for both spiritual reflection and physical health. It's not a diet in the traditional sense. There's no calorie counting, no strict meal timing, and no complicated rules to follow. Instead, it's about simplifying everything as much as possible. You remove processed foods and return to whole, natural ingredients your body actually recognizes and knows how to use. Think of it like pressing a reset button on your eating habits, giving your digestive system, hormones, and metabolism a break from modern food overload and constant stimulation. So what do you actually eat on this plan? You focus on foods that are as close to their natural state as possible, meaning they haven't been heavily processed or stripped of their nutrients. That includes fruits of all kinds, vegetables both raw and cooked, whole grains like oats, quinoa, barley, and brown rice, legumes like lentils, chickpeas, and black beans, plus nuts and seeds for healthy fats and long-lasting energy. And of course, water becomes your main and constant drink throughout the day. That's the foundation. Simple, whole, and nutrient-dense. Now, what gets removed? Pretty much anything heavily processed, refined, or engineered for taste rather than nutrition. No meat, no fish, no dairy, no eggs, no refined sugar or artificial sweeteners, no packaged snacks, no fast food, no fried foods, and no caffeine or alcohol at all. Yes, that includes coffee, which is usually the hardest adjustment for most people at the start. At first glance, it sounds strict, but the goal is not punishment or restriction. The goal is reduction. You're removing foods that overstimulate your nervous system and blood sugar so your body can stabilize and reset naturally over time. Now here's where things get really interesting. Why 21 days? Why not a week? Why not a month? Well, science actually gives us a pretty fascinating answer. It turns out 3 weeks is kind of a sweet spot for your body to go through 2 major changes. First, your gut. Your gut is full of bacteria, trillions of them, and what you eat determines which ones grow. If you're eating a lot of sugar and processed food, you're feeding bacteria that thrive on that. But when you switch to a high-fiber plant-based diet, something shifts. Over about 21 days, your gut starts favoring a completely different group of bacteria, ones that feed on fiber. These bacteria produce something called short-chain fatty acids, and these compounds are incredibly important. They help reduce inflammation, they improve digestion, they even play a role in mood and immune function. So in just 3 weeks, you're not just changing what you eat, you're actually changing your internal ecosystem. Now let's talk about your brain, because this part is wild. Most of us are used to eating what scientists call hyperpalatable foods. These are foods engineered to hit the perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat. And they light up your brain's reward system. The problem is, over time, your brain adapts. You need more stimulation to get the same satisfaction. That's why healthy food can start to taste boring. But when you remove those hyper-stimulating foods for 21 days, your brain begins to recalibrate. Your dopamine system resets, and suddenly, an apple tastes incredibly sweet. A handful of almonds tastes rich and satisfying. It's like your taste buds wake up again, and that shift alone can completely change your relationship with food. So why is modern science so interested in something this simple? Because when researchers look at diets like the Daniel fast, they see effects that line up perfectly with what we now understand about health. For one, it helps reduce inflammation. A diet rich in whole plant foods is packed with antioxidants and nutrients that calm down chronic inflammation in the body. And that matters, because inflammation is linked to so many diseases. It also improves gut health, like we talked about, thanks to all that fiber-feeding beneficial bacteria. Then there's blood sugar. When you cut out refined sugars and processed carbs, your blood sugar levels become more stable. No more big spikes and no more crashes. And interestingly, people often lose weight on this plan without even trying, not because they're restricting food, but because they're removing the kinds of foods that lead to overeating. So from a scientific perspective, it's not surprising that this works. It's just surprising how simple it is. Now let's talk about one of the most surprising areas of research: heart health. Some clinical studies on the Daniel fast have shown real improvements in cardiovascular markers. We're talking about measurable changes. People experienced reductions in blood pressure, both systolic and diastolic. And that's a big deal. High blood pressure is one of the major risk factors for heart disease. Then there's cholesterol. Researchers observed what they described as a sweeping effect: lower total cholesterol, lower LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol. And again, this isn't from extreme dieting. It's not from cutting calories to the extreme. It's simply from changing the quality of food. That's what makes it so powerful. Now you might be thinking, okay, so is this just another detox or cleanse? Not really, because here's the key difference. You're not starving. You're actually allowed to eat as much as you want. As long as it fits within the guidelines, whole plant-based foods, you can eat until you're full. That changes everything, because most diets rely on restriction. And when you restrict too much, your body goes into what's often called starvation mode. Your metabolism slows down, your energy drops, and eventually it backfires. But with the Daniel fast, you're fueling your body with nutrient-dense foods, high in fiber, rich in vitamins, naturally filling. So instead of shutting down, your body actually starts working better. And this brings us to something people often notice within the first couple of weeks. It starts to feel like a reset. Not in a gimmicky way, but in a real, noticeable way. Your energy becomes more stable. You're not riding that roller coaster of sugar highs and crashes. Your cravings start to fade. Foods you used to rely on don't feel as necessary anymore. And mentally, things feel clearer. It's subtle at first. But then you realize you're thinking more clearly, you're less sluggish, and your body just feels lighter. That's what happens when you remove the constant noise from your diet. No ultra-processed foods, no constant stimulation, just real food, doing what it's supposed to do. Now let's be real for a second. Is the Daniel fast for everyone? Not necessarily. It can feel restrictive, especially at the beginning. Cutting out caffeine alone can be a challenge for a lot of people. And if you have higher protein needs, like athletes, you may need to plan more carefully. Also, if you have any medical conditions, it's always a good idea to talk to a professional before making major changes. But for most generally healthy people, this is a safe, natural way to reset your eating habits. And even if you don't go all in for 21 days, there's still value in trying a shorter version. Even a week can give you insight into how your body responds. Here's the bottom line. The Daniel fast works because it keeps things simple. You cut out processed foods and eat whole, natural meals, and your body responds quickly. Energy, digestion, and cravings often improve in just a few weeks. It's not magic. It's just giving your body a break and letting it reset the way it's naturally designed to. So here's a question for you. Could you do it? 21 days, no processed food, no sugar, no caffeine, just real, simple food. So, are you ready to try the Daniel fast for yourself? Start with a few days, or go all in for 21. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. Thank you for watching.